Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. As promised from my last video, following up on the last set of statements that I made was that this particular game, Tom Clancy's XDefiant, whatever it is that they're calling it, is actually a very strategic move. Now, my last video was pretty much talking about perhaps how we may have originated and why you're seeing this game, even though many people will say that, no one asked for this game. The truth is, some people actually did ask for the game. But here's another thing that I believe is probably pertinent, or let's just say it's quite probable that this is kind of the reason you're seeing a game like this. Ubisoft has been testing its hands on a lot of these free-to-play models for a while. They've taken For Honor, they've done a lot of these free-ish, freemium type deals where they do free weekends, not necessarily putting the games out for free. They've also done this with Siege, where they'll do free weekends just to try to get people into these ecosystems and get a taste of what it's for. Even in some cases, the games have gone on sale, but I don't think that's actually accelerating exactly what it is they need for it to do. Because then if you go back and look at other games like, say, Fortnite is, no money down, and you just get into the whole game and you can start, spending money and giving the money to Epic Games, or you can get the children to start. Okay, whatever. Let's just talk about something else. Now, you think about all of this and you say, but why are they making a game like this? Now, let's just say we hide the whole Tom Clancy thing. It could have been another game. The game could have just been called XDefiant, like Hyperspace was called, which Hyperspace, I don't even know if they're still supporting it, but I think just the name was not catchy enough for them to be able to actually break into the market with a game like that. So they decided, man, we're going to smack a name on top of it. So it could have been Assassin's Creed. It could have been Far Cry. It could have been some of, one of their other bigger brands. So, just take it at face value. What if it wasn't called a Tom Clancy game? How would you then examine, or how would you then look at it? The truth is, this is actually Ubisoft's means to try to break into the market of first-person shooters and challenge companies like Activision and also EA on their home turf. Now, this is a very big statement that I made, because you also say, well, wouldn't it be more likely that they're trying to challenge, other companies like Epic Games and not Call of Duty? And the answer is potentially yes. There is a huge player base that actually engages in all these different games. But again, we have to look at the different models and look at why exactly they're saying this. Well, Activision eventually had to bring out the Warzone version of their Call of Duty games. So I think Ubisoft is replying to that in a means and trying to say, we're going to get into this area and try to fight with this competition, because they have the expertise, they have exactly what they feel they have anyways, what it takes to be able to do something of that nature. So that's number one. Number two is they more than likely are looking at, say, the results that Apex Legends is gaining, and they probably want to gain on some of those results. Apex Legends has done well for EA. Now, the shocking thing with Apex Legends is the team that actually did Apex Legends eventually got to make another video game while they were supporting Apex Legends. And, in this interview that you're watching the footage from, one of the developers mentioned something saying, we're going to be committed to the game, and that's the executive producer. We're not going to go ahead and make any other game. And somebody messaged, was saying something on Twitter and saying, that sounds like they, shots fired. And the truth is, it's only shots fired as long as Ubisoft says so. If Ubisoft taps them in their studio and says, hey, we have a project for you guys to work on, they have no choice than to say, sure, we're going to work on that project. If they want to keep their staff and all of that, they'll do whatever seems to be profitable for Ubisoft as a publisher so that they can keep their staff. So that statement, maybe he should have structured it in a different way, but I'm not going to get hung up over that. I'm just saying that is one thing that people need to understand, that the context in which that statement was made is a context that's saying this is the nature of the game. So we intend to give this game lifelong support. Now, yes, even if they're making other games, doesn't mean they're not going to support the game, just like Respawn has been doing. They're still supporting Apex Legends, while they even made Jedi Fallen Order, and it seems like they're making another Jedi game while still supporting Apex Legends. So that doesn't mean that they're going to just abandon the project. They can do multiple projects and hire as much as they need the help. But again, it's more likely that these games, Apex Legends, Call of Duty, Warzone, I think it's the free one that Activision does. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't play any of their games because, why? And, say Fortnite, these other games are enjoying these free-to-play models, and Ubisoft wants to come into this particular area. Now, here is another aspect that, we need to strongly consider. This kind of shooter is not necessarily one that we would say is a Fortnite-ish type deal, because it's an FPS shooter with a lot of the emphasis on the things that make Call of Duty and Battlefield to an extent. And I say Battlefield to an extent because Battlefield, this takes it, from the ground all the way into space sometimes, but these are elements that those games do enjoy and their audiences enjoy. At the time that Battlefield 2042 or 2024, I don't even know what the number is released, it's going to be a game that they're going to be asking $69.99 for, $99.99 for premium editions and all of that stuff. And then when the next Black Ops game releases, because, Activision churns them out each year like it's a bowl of cereal that you're asking for every morning, what's to say that players are going to want to just spend $120 right off the bat? Because like we all know, they usually come out somewhat close to each other. At this point, EA and Activision are they're playing this competitive game where they want to just flood the market at any given point with their products, so that people are at a point where they have to make one choice or buy both, depending on the kind of spender that they are, so that they don't get away from that decision. I think this is Ubisoft's way of saying, here is a free version for those of you who have happened to get your hands on a console or on a PC. You don't have to go ahead and start spending any extra money right off the bat. Here's a shooter that you can just download and go ahead and start playing instantly. To me, I strongly think this is a possible, aspect that they're trying to deal with when it comes to the reason they're bringing a game like this out. Note that from the leaks we saw from, the Division Heartland, it didn't look like this game. Even though Division Heartland is also going to be said to be a free game, that game also has its own reasons, its own target audience, and seems to be very different from this XDefiant game. So there's a lot going on here. Ubisoft is doing what Ubisoft does best in a genre when they're coming in. The only thing is they're front loading all the work. Now, what is that thing that I'm saying that they do best? Basically saturating the market to a way where you cannot think about that genre without thinking about a Ubisoft game. Now, is it a good thing? I don't know. I guess it's the gamers who enjoy these games that dictate it. But if you look at, say, Assassin's Creed moved from what it was, which was basically a game that had its own unique identity as to what it was, and then eventually moving on to bring in other elements that other open world third-person RPG games actually had. So games like The Witcher, basically Assassin's Creed Origins just took a lot of what they saw from that game, or games, that were like it, and implemented it in there, and it has birthed, 3 games that are designed along those lines. And Ubisoft is gonna go ahead and make another Assassin's Creed, making it the nth Assassin's Creed or the 1 zillionth Assassin's Creed game that you've seen. In terms of the free-to-play game, Ubisoft is no longer going to be bringing them out 1 year at a time. They're just going to toss all of them out there. And all of these other companies are basically going to have to fight with this studio in the way they do things. Ubisoft, in my opinion, is one of the studios that has the octopus model. Let's say another studio like Rockstar, they have what I call like the bow and arrow model, where they set a target, they fire for that target, and they hit bullseye almost every single time. Ubisoft wants to fire as many arrows as it finds possible and sees what sticks. And I think this may be their own business strategy. So what you're seeing is just these corporate, companies fighting for some piece of this particular genre. Epic Games already took the cake when it came to profitability with their Fortnite brand, and I think everybody else just wanted to kind of jump in. Also, PUBG did a huge number on taking a bunch of bucks as well too, as to the number of players and the number of profits they could make from this particular aspect. Now, again, you really have to be measured in how we look at all of this. Think about the way, the gaming industry is changing right now. Think about the way the console manufacturers are changing things, especially PlayStation. One of the things that I've noticed is a lot of these PlayStation releases are very pricey. PlayStation 5 games, I think Sony is trying to leverage all of this random money, just out of the bat, I don't know why they're doing it, but games are very expensive. And so what I've noticed is, the way these companies are going about these free-to-play models, I think they want to kind of subvert a lot of that, player upfront spending resistance. Basically, if you see a game at $69.99 versus a free-to-play model, you're more than likely going to go with the free-to-play game if it's going to provide you even maybe 10 minutes of free, enjoyment. And if at any point it provides you anything more, then it's now value. And at that point, players are more likely to start dropping in $1, $2 for skins, buying battle passes for $9 for a season or something. And this way the companies can basically gain a wider, or I would say a much more long-term spending, influx from the players. And I think that's probably what they're doing. Now, yes, they would like to be able to pawn off the $70 games at huge amounts, but it doesn't really make financial sense to not also try to get players to spend long term and eventually make up that $60, $70 price point or whatever it is, down the road. So there's so many aspects to it. It's not something that you can just easily deem as, this is something that they want to do just because, they're able to. This is something that they want to do because they find that there's some profitability in it. So you got to look at this from many different directions and many different angles. And hopefully, what I do hope at the end of the day, though, is that this does not become something that eventually destroys the authenticity of a lot of these franchises. You see, Tom Clancy name is a name that really has to, I would say stand for something when it comes to the video games. And right now, though, I have to say that, and I have to admit it, that this XDefiant concept just looks like Ubisoft trying to do their best to get into this market almost too forcefully. I believe they're trying super hard and it might go back and backfire on them. But here's the thing. As long as they don't abandon the vanilla franchises that come under this name, I think they'll be fine. But if they go ahead and abandon it, then I think that's definitely their demise. So if at any point they say, we're not going to make a Ghost Recon game, we're not going to make a Splinter Cell game, we're not going to make a Division game, we're just going to go with this premise, I think they're dead. But if they're going to keep those premises, if they're going to keep those particular games like Ghost Recon Breakpoint, Tom Clancy's The Division 1 and The Division 2, if they're going to, go ahead and finish that Splinter Cell game, even though that game has gone through a lot of issues, then definitely for sure, they have a very huge opportunity to continue to harness exactly what this brand is able to bring about. Talk to you guys in another video. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Peace out.